Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call our regular meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. It is Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 6:33 p.m. Hi everyone, my name is Rob Klee. I'm the chair of our Woodbridge Town Planning and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here tonight are Ben Cherry, Kathy Hunter, Yoni Zamir, Jeff Kennedy, and Cynthia Gibbons. Nice to have everyone. We may have a few others joining, Chris, later, or?
Yes.
Okay. Others may catch up. Chris, it is nice to have you. You always ably support us. You are our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. It's nice to be here in person. Our agenda tonight was available on the town website. As far as I know, today we only have one item of new business, which is an 8-24 referral from the Board of Selectmen. I know it is nice to have our first selectman here, Mika. Always nice to see you. So we had a 824 referral regarding Massaro Farm at 41 Ford Road, and I believe a high tunnel. And then after our new business, we'll go into our work session where I think we'll probably save for the end our zoning regulation cleanup, but otherwise we'll have some updates on our town plan of conservation and development and the hiring of a consultant. We're going to have our reports from our South Central Regional Council of Governments and a report from the Housing Committee and anything that's come into our zoning enforcement officer. So with that, and Andrew, good to see you as well. I believe we can get started with our 8-24 referral from Massaro Community Farm. Is there anyone here? Yes, there is. Welcome. If you could sign in and...
Well, there's nothing to sign in on. I know who you are, so you're good.
Fine. Then state your name and please present what is new on the farm and what you'd like our advice and guidance on.
Gladly. So, my name is Steve Munno. I am the Executive Farm Director at Massaro Community Farm. And what we have before you today is a proposal to construct a 30 by 96 foot high tunnel on the farm. We have 5 such structures that are nearly identical on the farm already and 3 similar but smaller structures as well. We use these to allow us to grow produce year round. So in the tunnels that exist right now, we currently have kale, collard greens, lettuce, carrots, parsley growing currently. We have our chickens in one of the tunnels as well for the winter. They're about to move out into the world as it gets warmer with the spring. And these are really helpful for the season extension, but also for mitigating the impacts of climate change. So when we have extreme rains, we can't control what falls on the ground, but by having a covered structure, we can control the moisture levels and leaf wetness and such on the crops that we grow. So it's incredibly valuable space, which has allowed us to sort of thrive regardless of conditions over the years. And we have funding coming from the NRCS, that's a Natural Resource Conservation Service, to build this. It would cover the cost of building, or nearly all the cost of it. We ask for no funds from the town to do this, but we do need permission from the town to build the structure.
Terrific. And I'm happy to open it up to the council for questions. My initial one, and I apologize if it was in your materials, what do you plan on growing or using this additional one for?
Really, it will allow us to do more and rotate. So essentially, throughout our farm, we like to rotate our crops. And, we started with just one high tunnel, and then there were 2 more. And we are very lucky that the USDA, which the NRCS lives within, has continued to provide funding for this. So though we won't build high tunnels all over the farm, we're kind of using a specific area where the others exist to build out because it's close to our infrastructure. So simply it will allow us to do a little bit more. So last year we did one of our first crops of cucumbers in the tunnel. This year we're going to experiment with some more peppers and maybe eggplant as well. We've also had strawberries in a tunnel at times. So it's allowing us to do not something different, but a little bit more, and allow us to rotate what's in the tunnel so that we don't end up with pest or disease pressures within the tunnels.
Other questions from commission members? Go right ahead.
So on this, which is the new one, Steve?
It's the
Field 5 or Field 6?
It's in field 6 and it's the southernmost. So
Oh,
at the
it's
bottom of
shaded
the
on the
map.
bottom?
Yeah, it's the shaded one at the
Got
bottom.
it,
So that's
okay.
sort of going. So
Any
yeah.
neon lights or anything at night lighting it up? Or
There's no light. The nice thing about this, so the difference between the high tunnel and a greenhouse is that there's no light and there's no heat. So we're not using any other energy other than the sun's energy coming through the plastic to warm and protect it. There's no fossil fuel use. There's no lights. There's no heat. There's no powered ventilation. We simply roll up the sides and open up the doors, and there's a sort of automatic vent at the top, which is just temperature driven that allows for ventilation. So no power is involved with this.
Sure.
What's the difference between a high tunnel and a caterpillar tunnel?
The Caterpillar tunnel is a smaller version, and because of the ribs of the tunnel, so there are, in both the high tunnel and the Caterpillar tunnel, every 4 feet there are hoops. But because the Caterpillar tunnel is only 14 foot wide, it kind of looks like a caterpillar in the way, I don't know, like a caterpillar sushi as well. Like you cut it up, it's just like the ribs and the line of it. It looks more like a caterpillar. The wider high tunnel is 30 foot wide. It doesn't have that look, but this looks like the 14 foot.
But
we
they
call it-
serve the same purpose other than capacity?
Yeah, the same purpose. And we built the Caterpillar tunnels in part because years back the NRCS was funding at a level that didn't allow for the wider tunnel and allowed for a smaller tunnel. So we took advantage of that, but didn't build as big of a structure. But the 30-foot wide tunnel, obviously gives us more square footage and is a little bit more of a robust structure. They've both served us well, but when given the option and the funding, we will build the larger tunnel.
Other questions from commission members? I'm seeing none. So Chris, I know I ask this every time we have an 8-24 referral. Is the preference to do a vote,
A motion.
a motion to, but this is a motion to express our view that this is in conformance with our regulations,
With the town plan.
with the town plan, yes, sorry. So I will move to provide the guidance that this proposed high tunnel at Massaro Farm at 41 Ford Road is in conformance with our town plan of conservation and development.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion from commission members other than I can't wait to eat whatever you are growing? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Oh, yeah, sorry, I always forget. We have too many folks who would like to be our, well, Cynthia, you raised your hand, so you get to be our alternate? Do we need one?
Yeah, because at last month's meeting, Kathy was your alternate.
We could take turns.
All right, so that was, all in favor, any opposed, any abstentions, and Cynthia is our alternate. Good luck.
Thank you much.
All right. And I'm correct, that was it for new business, right, Chris?
That is it. You have no old business.
So now we can move to our work session. Should we start with our updates? I know you sent us an email about the town plan of conservation
Yes,
and
that would
development.
be the most appropriate thing
and
to start with.
consultant.
So today, I sent out to you a PDF of the proposal that was submitted by SLR. That was the only firm that submitted a proposal for working on the town plan of conservation and development. So it's there for you to look at. One idea, I met with First Selectman and Tony Genovese today, and one suggestion was, if you were so inclined, that you might meet with representatives from SLR at a special meeting sooner rather than later, so we can get the process rolling, in case you have any questions that you'd like to ask them after you've had a chance to review their proposal. From Tony Genovese's perspective as the finance director, the proposal amount that they've put in there for the total funding seems to be a doable amount. One of the things that they had asked about, and I did check with the South Central Regional Council of Governments with, is that typically the town plan has a lot of mapping within it. And so they had mentioned that other towns that they've been working with have been utilizing the services of their local council of governments to produce that mapping. So I did check with our council of governments, and that is indeed a service that they can provide at no charge to the town, so that may help to bring down, in a sense, a portion of the cost of the town plan, because they won't have to have any in-house services providing that. So at this point, I guess the main thing I need to know is, are you interested in having a meeting with them? I did reach out to them today. They are available next Monday. Typically, there's a zoning board of appeals meeting on the second Monday of the month. There is no meeting this month, so I know this room is available. So if that's a doable date, I know that Rob said he wouldn't be able to make that date, but,
That's okay.
Does this have to be public, Chris? Like, can it be by email, as we sometimes do things? that
there
go
are
back?
no email. When you're discussing in public.
So we can't put anything back and forth in an email to comment on
It needs to be here in public.
I just had a question in terms of where this was advertised. I know it was on the town's website, and I saw it on the state's website. Was it advertised anyplace else, the RFP?
Wherever Tony, who's very familiar with advertising for these types of things, put it out to. I wasn't in charge of that particular aspect of it.
And I can't speak to exactly where it was advertised, but I can tell you that it was advertised where he would normally, where he's done it in the past.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
we
was
were a little surprised with only getting one response.
Yeah.
The good news is that it is a response from the company that, consultants who have done this before for us.
Mhm.
They're previously known, just so you know, as Malone McBroom, if
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken. They were the last VOCD 10 years ago, that's who we worked with, so they have some good material, they're familiar with us. As you go through it, you'll see from a experience standpoint, they've got a, they're very well versed in this type of thing. So in reviewing it with Tony, being that we only have one, it's up to us as whether or not we want to use it, but we can go forward with this one if that's what we want to do. And we're looking for your concurrence in terms of moving forward in that.
And if
Yes.
you look at the map that's in there that shows the local air communities that they've done or are currently working on, there are a lot that surround us and a lot within our own council of governments. So they're familiar with not only having worked with the town before, but the region as a whole, because your town plan has to be in sync with that as well as the state plan.
And they've also worked with towns very similar to ours from a profile standpoint.
So who's SLR compared to the name of the firm that did it last?
They're the same.
They're the same.
Oh, it's the same. They changed the name or something? Or?
They merged in
they
with
merged,
another company.
That's a,
They keep getting larger.
they get larger. Okay, got it. All right. Understood.
But as Chris mentioned, the concern right now is more timing. This is something that takes quite some time, and it must be done probably in the February timeframe of next year. So we would like to get it started as soon as possible, and so apologize for the imposition in terms of asking for a meeting sooner than your next meeting, but didn't want to wait another month for us to move forward with this.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to meet, whoever can meet on March 11th, because, I mean, we have to really, because we're all, I feel like we're already behind the eight ball a little bit. So I think it really need to jumpstart this process. So I would like to hear from them just to get geared up for how we proceed.
They do have a time frame within the document that I sent out to you. They also said that they would be able to do a presentation for you at a meeting, so that most of you have never done or worked on a town plan before. So just to help get you up to speed on that and whatnot, they can do a presentation, you know, for you. They also said that they understood the time frame and are comfortable that the plan can get completed in a timely fashion. They will be meeting with other groups and organizations within the town so that that will all get incorporated, you know, within the plan. So I guess I need to know from you, does next Monday work?
So it doesn't work for me, but that is fine. I actually am fairly familiar with Malone and McBroom now SLR.
Can work for me.
It can or cannot?
It can, yeah, I
It
can
can,
hear.
okay. Okay.
And do you have enough time to notice it as a?
It would just be a special meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a problem from my end.
6:30 again?
6:30?
I'll
Well,
let
it's
them
up to
know
you
what
all.
time, you know. The
That's-
room is here,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
That's fine.
so 6:30 next Monday, okay. I will
And then
let them
the engagement and decision-making process, assuming we have a positive meeting and decide to go forward with them after the 11th, what are the next steps that we have to, do we just,
We have to submit it to the Board of Selectmen for approval, and that would take place on the 13th. So,
Ah.
a couple of days following. I got that right?
Mhm. I think you do.
so the hope would be that we would have that meeting on the 11th and have some sort of formal motion that we would
Make a
make
recommendation.
a recommendation.
Mhm.
Great.
Right, that's the only agenda item.
That would be the
Yeah,
agenda item,
that's the only
yeah.
thing we would do.
Chris, would they be doing the presentation that we described then, or another time?
They were gonna be able to bring materials and do it that evening. So they just wanted to make sure that they knew which staff to have and what to do, so.
Good.
And I will get back to him first thing in the morning.
And that'll be recorded, maybe, no?
Would that be able to be recorded?
What day, Monday?
Yeah. Normally, it would, yeah, it normally would have been zoning board of appeals, so
Yeah, that's fine.
just a different set of initials.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anything further we need to do on that topic?
Nope.
Terrific.
As long as you all get a chance to read that proposal.
Yep. So everyone should have gotten in their email.
I didn't get it. I just got it, but I got it. Yes.
Great. All right. Andrew, do you want to give us any updates from Scrog?
Sure. At a meeting on Thursday, February 8th, 2024, that I attended virtually. There were two action items, one from the city of West Haven regarding a zoning text amendment with respect to daycare, and one from the town of Durham, not actually in our district, but bordering it, regarding residential zoning amendments and a map to update. With respect to both of which, there were found to be no negative intermunicipal impacts nor potential harm to the environment of the Long Island Sound. There is another meeting this Thursday.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Kathy, any report from our housing committee?
Just a couple of things. I did report it last meeting, but we did have our presentation from Tim Austin, who presented on the Greenway, and that was very informative, and it's just something that we're doing as we try to work in a manner that's complementary to both housing and preservation. And it was useful, particularly as we were looking at the use of town-owned properties. We want to be able to work together on that. We do have 2 new members to our committee, which is great. Warren Marshall is one member who has a extensive history in rehab and development of affordable housing, and I had opportunity to work with him in my past life. So he's a great addition. And we also have Miles Katz, who is a high school student who will be with us until he goes off to NYU in September, but he has an interest in affordable housing, and I just think it's really good to, the committee felt it was really good to engage the future of Woodbridge in our conversations to kind of balance that. And for our meeting on Wednesday, we'll have in attendance Ben Lovejoy, who is a new appointee to Department of Housing, who's helping out towns to get planning resources to implement their affordable housing plans. So he will be here Wednesday to discuss, our needs in terms of how we can move forward. And that is it. Maybe there's any questions or?
Just a shout out to Miles Katz, he's a terrific kid, I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great. We had to wait until he turned 18, and he turned 18 end of the month. He's gonna make sure he registered, but no, he'll be a great addition.
Terrific. Other questions for Kathy? Okay, seeing none. Chris, do you want to give us an update as our zoning enforcement officer?
We continue to get some applications or questions asked about ADUs, so that is a very useful thing that you've added through the state and yourselves into the regulations. Other than that, today we had an interesting call regarding, and perhaps it's just a sign of the times, we had a camper that was getting parked in different parking lots throughout our business district where someone was living. And so as of today, the police department had visited them and caused them to move. They'd gotten in charge or in touch with the property owner, and but this is perhaps just another indication of the fact that people are willing to use whatever housing they can have at hand to shelter.
Were they doing so with the permission of the property owner?
No, they were not. They were shunting between some parking in the adjacent Amity Shopping Center and then several sites within Woodbridge. So between the police department and myself, we'll be keeping an eye out on them. This is not a camper that's a registered like van type thing, but rather something that is towed, so it's not something where you have a licensed motor vehicle that's being parked somewhere, but rather a camper that's being parked and then occupied. So.
Don't they have to, excuse me, don't they have to have they have a license plate on the camper, right, that they're pulling?
They do, but it's not the same thing as a registered
Right,
motor
no.
vehicle because campers are not supposed to be in the front yard. They're
Right.
supposed to be screened from view versus a vehicle which can be parked, but then it's a vehicle being parked used as a dwelling, and so there are tiers to it. I did check in with Quinnipiac Valley Health District, and they have no jurisdiction over it unless the camper is in such disrepair that they have to see it as an issue with the type of housing that the camper is providing and whatnot. So, but in this case, it was a complaint from a business owner who was concerned that it was affecting his business. It had been located on his property earlier in front of his ADA ramp, and so he'd asked to have it moved. It was moved to the adjacent property, but then when he came to work today, it was there.
So this was handled as a trespassing issue or as a zoning issue?
The police department got involved and contacted, verified that it was there, contacted the property owner, and the property owner then indicated that it should be removed, so it was.
Do we know in terms of the composition of the occupants? Is it a family? Is it a couple?
I did not talk to them. I have no idea.
So back to Benjamin's question, is it a zoning? I'm sorry.
It can be a zoning issue, yes.
Right.
But in this particular, and this is why I was touching base with the police department to see how we were gonna handle it, but they were able to handle it at this point on their own, so
So
we'll
it
just be
didn't-
keeping a watch to see if it shows up in another business parking lot. Because
And it's mostly been in the business district? Or
it's
only-
been all in
only-
the business
yeah.
district. It had gone from the Amity Shopping Center to parking where the UPS store had been, to where the hair salon on the corner of June and Selvin was, and then it was in front of the teen center. So, But, as I say, probably just an indication of needs that are out there that
I'd like to go back for just a moment to the accessory dwelling units. Are we sort of keeping tracks or
I
statistics?
haven't been
on-
keeping track of them. They're issued through a zoning permit, and the online permitting program that we have doesn't differentiate within a zoning permit whether it's for
Oh,
a shed or for a whatever, and so, no. Going forward, when I sign off on them, I can make a hash mark and let you know, but right now, no.
Do you have like a sense, like a magnitude, whether or not 10, 20?
I would say it's between 10 and 20, and there's been any number of, actually, the house that's gonna get built down on 110 Luciani will have an accessory dwelling unit within it.
hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
assuming the first house getting built is gonna have one that, more likely than not, the second house may also have one.
So definitely going forward, it'd be nice to have
Mhm.
some sort of tally. It's a little frustrating that it's not easy to just pull a report of that
Yeah.
from previous.
It's like our building permits can't get easily broken into, additions, sheds, whatever.
Oh, but, so zoning permit, but they would also likely be would they pull a specific building permit as well? Or
Yep.
no?
They would potentially
a
be
permit.
doing a
Yeah.
building permit, but again, as I say, the building permit doesn't break it down into that level of information.
Is that a result of the form itself, or is that something else?
We could talk to the vendor that we use for the online permitting and ask them if it's something where there could be more just to check off what type of zoning permit that you're using, because from my perspective, it's a use permit. It's not a footprint permit generally, unless it's an accessory building that they're constructing. But if it's within an existing home, then it's just the use of it, and all they're doing is demonstrating that it meets the requirements of size and whatnot. So I can investigate that. That's not a hard ask to ask.
But that's an interesting and encouraging number.
Yeah,
Do you have a sense of like how many are attached versus detached?
most of them are attached. As I say, the one that will get constructed down on Luciani will actually be, side by side, because I was just looking at the site plans and they're making some modifications so that it's compliant with the description of what an ADU has to be within the zoning regulations. They thought it was 33%. I said, no, it's 30%, so we're working with that.
Any other questions for Chris?
So, if I might,
Oh, yeah, sure.
just curious in terms of, I know the zoning also changed with regard to duplexes or two-family construction. Is there any of that?
There's
at all?
been no two-family construction,
Thank you.
except for where it normally,
Where it had previously been allowed.
it had been previously allowed. There is a duplex that's currently just been issued a permit for on Manila.
Thank you.
For all the remaining units, or just,
This is for a lot that had been vacant that someone just purchased.
well, I'm thinking about the ones off of Merritt, I apologize.
Yeah, that one, they're almost in the works of, they just filed a revised Mylar, which showed, I had requested if they could to put some parking spaces at the end of the cul-de-sac for overflow parking, and they have accommodated that. They will be taking down the existing residence that is right at the beginning of the road, and they're gonna build a similar duplex to the other ones that they have, so they'll all be, the same in there. So they just filed that Mylar. So,
Any additional questions? Before we turn to our zoning regulations, should we approve our minutes, or is that out of order?
no, well, let's get them done. And
Motion
then-
to approve, I read the minutes, okay.
So, motion to approve, do we have a second?
Just
Wait.
one,
Just second it and then you can.
first I got a
Yeah.
second,
Yeah. Right, so in front of us are the
First and second.
minutes from February 5th. Any discussion? Yeah.
It's a minor thing, but I can point it out to you later.
Okay.
It was not,
Okay.
but I
Just
am
wanna-
here.
I try to spell your name right. I hope it's
No,
not your
I-
name.
but
Yeah, but he wasn't here.
No, he wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't here and I have you
Yeah.
voting?
You have me in a couple
Hey,
spots.
you know, what can I tell you?
Any further discussions, edits to the?
There's a comma after your name on the last page.
Anything other than the comma on the last page?
I think that's comma supposed to be.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving the February 5th minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'll
Any
get rid of the
opposed?
comma after my name on the list.
Any abstentions?
I will abstain.
Right, so Ben abstained.
In which case Kathy and Cynthia can vote, if you want.
Oh, sure.
So I believe they're unanimously approved.
Mhm.
Terrific. Alrighty. So next up is to, can we spend an hour till 8 o'clock? Sure.
And now you get to go home, Mika.
56 minutes.
56 minutes of review of our updates and cleanup of our zoning regulations. Hopefully everyone got the email, which I think had the electronic version that we've been working on. Chris, I see you going to the tabs in your book. Can you tell us where we
You're on
should end up?
page, oh, where are you? You're in section 5. So in the annotated version, it's page 143.
Very good. 143 out of 232.
We should
Getting
be
there.
able to, in 56 minutes, now 55, finish tonight.
Possibly so.
That's, I challenge you with that, Mr. Chairman.
The challenge has been put forth to go from our standards in 5, or basic standards, all the way through to the end.
Yes.
Okay.
And Chris, thanks again for the copy.
That had requests for hard copies, and they got them.
Is this PDF page 133 or document page number 133?
Document
43.
143, PDF, page 147-ish, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're in this section on the basic standards. I'm looking at the first comment that there's been changes to statute regarding abandonment.
Abandonment, yes. So, did I get that for you? Yeah.
I'm not
So there's a new, the statute was changed because before it used to say if you took down the structure, that was an indication of abandonment. But the statute has been changed to say now that the demolition or deconstruction of a non-conforming use, building, or structure shall not by itself be evidence of such property owner's intent to not reestablish such use, building, or structure.
So what is he suggesting, that we add a number 4 with that language?
I think he was just suggesting that it conform to what the statute says. So,
I don't think I understand more conforming or less conforming. I thought that was kind of a binary condition.
so sometimes use may be there and it may be I'm trying to think of a good example. We had a site where there were 2 houses and one structure was allowed to remain. It wasn't gonna be a second house. And it was reduced in size so that which had been the reduction in the size of the structure made the structure more conforming, and the disallowance of the use of it as a house, because a new house had been built. So this was going to be used as just an outbuilding where they might go
I see.
read or do something like that. So it's bringing the site more into conformance with what the regulations would want it to be.
I
Does that
see.
make sense?
So things like dimensions and intended use can be considered separately in terms of being conforming or non-conforming, and, okay.
So
Yeah.
you
Some-
may improve on one metric even though you didn't quite.
You know, because
Improve on
sometimes
both.
when variances are granted, one of the things that gets looked at is, are they trying to make it as conforming as possible? So do they add on to the furthest back portion of a structure or something?
Thank you.
So is the question here, do we need, instead of adding a number 4, just have a subject to the whatever?
Conformance with
The statute?
Because it may
Yeah.
get amended from time to time, and I can insert that number, which,
Yeah. Is everyone okay with that, to just have a reference to that statute that would
Sure.
Yes.
supersede?
Yes.
I'm guessing we get a lot of yeses out of me today.
they just want to keep moving
He
along.
wants to keep moving.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, next page.
144.
Environmental conditions, preservation of special features. So we have why is a slope greater than 35% a special feature? And notice just that there are different slope definitions that vary between 18% and 35%, but
Oh, let me see our definition of slopes. So the slope definition that's in the definition section relates to the buildable area of a lot, not,
yeah, I don't worry that there's, the 18% was dealing with if you
Yeah.
add that slope, the USGS requires things,
Okay.
this just seems to identify a 35% slope as something, granted, that's really steep,
Yeah.
that's pretty steep.
and it's something to preserve for some reason.
I don't know that many people
Scenically?
would be, well, I guess down on 110 Luciani, we may have gotten rid of some 35% slopes, but it depends on where it is.
I don't see any reason to change or edit
Okay.
this,
So
unless
just
anyone else does.
get rid of that note on
Yeah.
the side.
I would
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Agreed.
Stone walls, there's a reference to character, which we have been removing.
Nature or features?
Hmm?
Nature, replace it with the word nature, or replace it with the word features.
Or do you want to just say maintaining the Woodbridge country landscape?
Yeah, I think just delete
There you
the
go.
character of the, and just say
That-
maintaining the Woodbridge country
I'll do
landscape.
that.
Is an okay deletion, everyone?
Sounds great.
There's a highlight of these proposed plans, but I don't know why.
I don't know why that word's highlighted either.
So you can unhighlight that at the bottom of C, alternative preservation plans.
Maybe
Should be the
such,
plans.
yeah, the or such, as opposed to like, I don't know.
That makes more sense.
Okay,
We don't even use that.
nice word
Those
change.
plans
Next page, section 5.4, refuse and pollution. Dumpster and solid waste disposal location designed for non-residential uses. Is the note there that by putting that in the title of this section, it may only apply to non-residential uses of dumpsters and solid waste disposal, even though the next line says on any lot. So we could end A, dumpster and solid waste disposal location design, period.
Sounds good.
Okay. And
You have to
now
go through a bunch of pages with,
this, you looked ahead, Andrew. You knew that we had a lot of pages to.
look how fast you're going through this.
I'm just scrolling. You knew something that we didn't know, Andrew.
162.
Like 162.
Document page.
Document page
Document
162. Okay, so we're in the standards for stormwater management, section 5.7, and exemptions. And there's a note about waive and waiver being reconsidered given the McKinsey decision. Do we need to reflect our,
I don't
refresh
know
our
what the
recollection?
McKenzie decision is, but I can attempt to find out.
But he didn't like recommend which one we should be using.
You just wanted us to,
There may have been a court case about waivers that, and a procedure.
Neither do I.
Unintentional.
hey Google.
It was actually Siri. But,
The phone actually responded to that. That's good. So can we look up the McKinsey decision in case it?
I'll make a note.
Okay, I don't know what to do with it other than, Chris, if you could look up and see if there's anything there.
Yeah,
Worth-
I'll double check, and if it's just changing it to a different word based on that court case, I'll let you know. what it
Unless
is.
we're no longer allowed to
Waive stuff,
waive, these are the stormwater
yeah.
regulations. Because this basically gives us the ability to waive all the regulations in whole or part unless it's gonna cause an adverse effect to our
Yeah.
surface water, groundwater.
McKenzie versus Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right, so Andrew, I'll leave you to see if we can do some phone-based, legal research,
Yeah.
and we'll keep
It's
moving.
very small, but I'll read quickly.
Otherwise, I'm scrolling now,
165.
165. So this is in site amenities, section 5.9B on landscape standards. It looks like there's a missed reference. Table 5.1 is the width of the buffer, while table 5.2 is the list of the trees. Is that,
Yeah, so,
so that's a simple.
So we would have to approve the type of tree?
no, they
There
can
was that on
use anything that's
On the
on,
list.
on the list, but if it's not on the list, then you would have to approve
But we're hopefully pointing them to the right.
the list.
Yes.
Yeah, no, 5.2 is a list of trees. Okay.
Is he doing Boy Scouts? Commute service in the community? Just to let you know, they have to attend a meeting and see what you all do. And then it's part of a merit badge that he has to earn towards working on ultimately Eagle, but he has to earn a certain number of merit badges for each rank, like first class and whatnot.
Count as double.
Yeah, you should get double
Yeah, this'll
for
be
this.
this'll be the toughest one.
Earning it tonight.
So in case it wasn't just the 2-second version, knowing that Andrew has put us on a time clock for tonight. Our regulations, as we've grown into them, we've found that there are things like the one we just talked about, where the regulations as drafted point to a table that is the wrong table. It was supposed to point to table 5.2, which is a list of trees. Instead, it pointed to 5.1, which was not. It was the width of the buffer area. So we've been going through a months-long process where we dedicate part of our meetings each time we meet to try to clean up the mistakes that we've found. We hired a consultant to actually go through and try to find all those mistakes. Because we are a public entity and a public board, we have to do all this in open meeting. We can't just rely on what the consultant did. We have to agree that these are the changes we want to make. And then we're going to have a public hearing and a whole process to approve the new thing that is mostly about cleaning up the mistakes, making it much more user-friendly, easier to read, etc. But you're in the, what we like to call the sausage-making process, and getting to see us go through, although quicker tonight than we have recently, these types of small edits to a document that we've will hopefully make it more coherent after we're done.
And just so you know, they're all volunteers. They do this because they're good citizens for the
And
town.
we've been doing this for 6 months.
More than
Well,
that.
this particular thing they've been
Yes.
doing for 6 months, yeah.
But it is great to have you here tonight, thank you. And you can go to Massaro Farm and see the hoop houses and the things that they're building there, which require our input as well. Okay, so section 510, landscaping, screening, and buffer areas, sorry. The note is that landscape provisions are located in several places in the regulations. I think this is just a comment that we keep having multiple areas. I don't think this is one that we're going to fix.
I'm sorry, 165. Are you done with 165?
160, yeah.
165 is just, table
5.2.
5.1 is now going to be 5.2. So I'm now on page 166.
Yep.
I think that was more of a comment, but not something for us to
To really
clean up.
worry about.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm now scrolling. And Andrew, stop us any moment if you have any Mackenzie versus
Yeah, I'm
still working.
working on it, yeah.
So here's your width of buffers that he
Right,
notes is not referred to anywhere except where it was erroneously referred to. So do you want to change, get rid of table 5.1?
Do we need
Why do we need it here if we have it in the?
Actually, there is a buffer. It's in 5. So a buffer area. So it's not referred to within 5. It's just a table that tells you if a buffer is required adjacent to a residential district, that you have to have a 10-foot buffer and a 50-foot buffer, for whatever reason, in Dev 1 and Dev 2.
But in this section 510D, there is a whole section on buffer areas.
Right, but nowhere in there does it specifically refer to table 5.1 telling you the width of the buffer.
It comes close in D3. It says, when it's not feasible to comply with the minimum widths required above, of which there are none.
Right.
But maybe
So maybe it
that's
should be
the table
minimum widths
in
in
table.
table 5.1.
Great. So I'm now we're looking just on page 167, section D3. That's where you would refer to the table 5.1.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Everyone okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Terrific.
And get rid of required above.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and then here is table 5.2, in case you were wondering, all the trees that we currently allow for, recommend in our town rights of way. where there's a note at the bottom of page 169 is, should this be an appendix rather than in line in the regulations? I'm okay with it as where it is.
Yeah, it's fine.
And on page 170, there's a highlighted wave.
Wave, I think that's
It's
what
a wave
Andrew's
problem.
checking out.
That's part of the McKenzie issue.
I don't
It
know.
may apply to the ability to.
To us to
commissions
waive
being able
anything?
to waive anything.
Oh.
So far, all I could tell from, it's like a 70-page decision, is that you have to have intra-conformity within districts that doesn't necessarily equal conformity within the entire town in terms of
Okay.
waivers. So if you have disallowed a waiver in a particular district, you can't waive it for somebody else. But that wouldn't apply necessarily to a different zoning district within the town.
And I've gotta tell you, I don't know of this commission ever waiving anything within here.
But the case, at least at first blush on a phone, seems to be about being consistent in your waivers, not that we can't waive.
Right. Yeah, on the intra-district level.
Okay.
Is this Mackenzie versus TBZ of Monroe?
Yes.
Town of Monroe, yeah.
All right,
He's,
well,
he's looking at the bigger version than you've got.
okay, so we will add that to the question of waivers on, and that's in the sidewalk standards on section 5.13. Section 5.14, fences and walls, which apply in most of our district zones, but not A or B residential zones. Is that of concern? Should we have them?
When this was originally done, it was, I can remember the then chairman specifically wanting it to apply to residential A.
He did or did not?
He did. So I don't know why it's not.
Doesn't make sense.
I mean, it was a generic, it was applying to all zones irregardless.
Yeah, and they seem just on quick glance pretty standard that your fence should be so that the decorative surface faces your neighbor, which is just
Right.
good to do. It includes, reference to deer fencing and other things. I'm okay with applying it to all zones.
So should we just say in an opening thing, the following provisions shall apply to all zones?
Because otherwise that list is everything else.
Yeah, 'cause
Everything
it is-
except A and B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
What's B again?
B is up Bradley Highlands behind Brookside Market.
So it's-
Near the
Should
JCC.
be-
Yes, I,
Should be all.
Yeah. Okay. Everything's okay with applying to all. For fences and walls, page 170.
Yep.
So I'm now on page 173, section 5.15, standards for outdoor lighting, and the note in the highlighting is on the, not clear on the logic of some of these foot candle limits. And highlighted are car sales, which appear to get very bright lights, I'm guessing, at a 20.
That seems pretty high relative to the other numbers.
What about the chart on page 171? I mean, there's nothing in here.
But it's referred to under B
Well,
and C.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, but it's referring to.
Hang on a sec, let's see.
No, this version is missing what look like pictures.
Oh, pictures, okay.
Chris, does your version have,
It doesn't have it in here, but I'm just double checking to see there is a whole,
Yeah, there's a whole
so
section.
the luminaire types is showing how the lights are angled.
Okay.
And then there's a table 3, which, do we have that in here? Yeah, table 3 is in here. So the only thing we're missing is, and we just need to make sure that that shows up.
and again, I'm not an expert in foot candles. In table 5.3, I'm confused a bit by why is there a first number, then a dash, and a much smaller number for only some of them? For instance, adult daycare is 2.4 dash 0.6. And then other ones are 0.08 dash 0.2.
This is supposed to be a minus?
Is it supposed to be 2.4 to 2.6?
Or is it
I don't know.
2.4 minus 0.06?
I,
No, because it would be,
The car sales has to be a typo, maybe 2.0. That's 20
That's
times,
pretty
it'd be really bright lighting.
that's what it is in the old one,
Yeah, because hospitals are 5 and outdoor storage is 3, so 20 it would melt the cars.
though, right?
Would be what?
Would-
It would melt the
like,
cars.
Yeah,
It'd
that
be
must be a
like-
typo. I don't know anything about candle standards.
But where did, historically, where did these standards come from and how did they end up in our regulations?
I think they came from Hamden, because we never
Oh.
had them. So I can look and see.
has this come up?
I believe it came up when we were dealing with the new lighting at the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I recall as well. And were those in the public utility or the public use plus public utility?
I don't remember.
Which again, even those two, a public utility has that number, whether it's a range or not. But public use plus public utility is much lower. Was that actually intended for the UI-owned lights at the high school?
I don't know, as with you, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what these numbers mean even.
I'll try to find out for you what this is supposed to.
And might I suggest that at least for the ones that are highlighted, the car sales at 20 and even the hospital at 5, those are twice to nearly 10 times what I think is the highest in any of the others. So I would recommend at a minimum it's brought down to the 2.4 seems to be our highest number. Yeah, no, it could be, but none of them are 2.0s.
Does foot candle equal brightness?
Yes.
Sort of.
Outdoor storage should say 3.0, but it doesn't in this version. So, Chris, any guidance you can give us on
Yeah,
a
I'll check into that.
reasonable number and I guess put the hospital, car sales, and outdoor storage at the reasonable maximum number?
It says 1 foot candle equals 10.76 lumens. A lumen is considered the same as a lux, which is the most modern light, which most modern light meters calculate their measurements. Which is what most modern light meters calculate measurements in.
Okay, so this one, Chris, you have some homework
I
on.
got some homework
On
to
the
do.
foot
That's
candle
okay.
standards. So I'm gonna move on to 5.16, infrastructure. Again, there's a reference to waiver at the bottom of page 174, whether or not we can waive.
174, I don't see that.
The way,
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Section 5.17, traffic, parking, and loading requirements. And the note is, why wouldn't parking requirements be tied to a specific use regardless of which zone it is in?
So, just so you know, also in A, it says off-street parking and loading regulations. It says see table 5.5. And table 5.5 is parking aisle width on page 178 in the annotated. I think this is one of the ones that we're missing a table.
yes.
I had, well, no, I think there are two table 5.5s. That's the problem. And I think the first table 5.5 should be a 5.4.
And where's
Yeah, where's that?
5.4? 5. Because we have 5.3, which is the one I gotta check on.
The lights.
I don't think we have a 5.4.
Right.
And I think 5.5, the second 5.5 is on page 181.
Okay.
For that matter, I don't see a table 5.2.
We're losing
But
tables right now.
5.5 is
trees.
required queue spaces. It's still not parking.
Oh. So I haven't helped us, even though I found two 5.5s.
We found a table 5.5, but it still doesn't do what we need it to do.
So, I think I found it. Luminaire types on page 171 is labeled figure 5 point, oh, I'm sorry, it's figure. Pardon me.
So this is, I'm pretty sure we were missing the parking space. It's for residential zones. So, all right. So we have two table 5.5s. And we need to see if there's a table 5.4 reference anywhere.
There is no table 5.4, at least searching the PDF.
Okay.
So, on page 174, no, sorry, 178 of the document should be relabeled table 5.4. Parking aisle width.
So, yeah, in
What-
6, it's referencing to the table without referencing to the table. It just says the following being the minimum width permitted. So if you want to renumber that to be 5.4 and do like we did in the other one and say the widths in table 5.4 being the minimum width permitted. Does that make sense?
Sure. I also note that there's table 4.2 that is about shared parking. Is that at all relevant here?
There was a table 4.2. Which I think we got. There is a table 4.2, which is on 127.
And then I mean, so this is all, this whole section back here on page 127, which we've already gone through, is a mess in that it refers to, this is where a lot of the parking, the effective parking, and it also has a reference here on page 128 of the document to table 5.5, which we now don't think exists.
Well, 5.5 exists.
It exists, but
Just
we-
wanna make it 5.4.
But it's not related to,
It's not related to this.
Well, there are two table 5.5s,
neither one of them.
and not, although this, the parking aisle width may,
So do you wanna move, what the heck is density? So I guess they threw parking in here because it was somehow gonna relate to the density that you could have on a parcel.
so I think we need a table 5.4
Right,
summarizing the parking requirement for each use by zone.
well, that's the 5 point. That's not step 2.
Because on the danger here is on 128, we are referring to this table 5.5, saying that we'll summarize the parking requirements for each zone, which now should be table 5.4. And yet, do we know what those are? Have we established those anywhere?
So in 5.17A, it refers to parking requirements for T-zones and Dev 2. But table 4.2 not only does the T-zones, it also does Dev 1, Dev 2, BI, and GB. And the 3 residential districts of C, D, and BB.
Andrew, I think parking is going to
Guys,
going to scuttle our hoped for. So, references to table 4.2 is this diagram that shows a shared parking factor.
Yep.
Oh.
So is 4.2 the one that's really establishing how much parking is required in a residential?
Only, no, 4.2, because you have the overlay district, which allows for apartments, over commercial use, it makes sense that it, well, but they've also tied in the 3 residential districts down there. The T1, the T2, and
Because of whatever, for whatever reason, do we actually not have explicit parking requirements? Numbers of spaces required per zone.
they used to, in the old regs, used to have it as part of the use table, but that disappeared when these regs were done.
Yeah, we did have that, didn't we? When it was like 2017 or 18, it was there.
Yeah.
Right.
It was in the use table off to the side, there was a formula for coming up with how many parking spaces you needed.
Did it work?
Yeah.
We can go get it and put it back in.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that adopting the Hamden regulations as our own was a mistake.
I mean, truthfully, some of the issues that we have down in the residential T3C, D, and BB zones, more the C and D that you've heard about, is that people have more than one car per house. And table 4.2 is only saying you need one space. And the problems that have been encountered down there is that there's not enough parking on the sites themselves to get the cars off the street. And so you have narrow streets that the school buses can't easily maneuver up and down and whatnot. So to me, to say one space in there is not really recognizing how it works. Because there's typically at least 2 cars per house.
Easily.
Yeah.
But for us to establish what this is asking for, this table that is magically going to summarize the parking requirements for each use by zone,
We don't have it.
we don't have it. I don't think that is, other than it's a problem that we're referring to it repeatedly in this,
Yeah.
I don't know that's something that's a cleanup if we're going to actually, because
That's a
parking,
bit of a project, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, no,
it's
it's
not
a-
a cleanup item, it's something we
at
have
all.
to fix. We have to repair it. It's a big thing.
Well, it's not unreasonable to request.
No, not at all. It's
no, yeah,
necessary.
no, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this. I just don't know if we can do that
Right, yeah.
intelligently right now to pick whatever.
It's like a special
Planning.
project.
Yeah. Because in all honesty, it looks like that section of parking probably should somehow be merged into all one place rather than having to bop back and forth between the two.
It should be all in one place.
So maybe we just make a big note that when you do your big revision, fix parking.
It's its own project.
And it looks like it is section 4.2, which is about parking location and private roadway standards, would be the place where we already are putting in specific requirements for the T zones
Mhm.
on some parking requirements for the T zones, some frontage and driveway requirements for other places. So that would be the place. I don't think we're prepared to actually, because parking is actually an interesting and sometimes a barrier to development. It can, in the pandemic, it was hard for, when restaurants needed to actually use parking spaces to have outside terrace and outside dining. They had to the governor did a statewide sort of emergency order to basically put in advance the parking requirements that otherwise would have been required, so restaurants could actually function. Okay, Chris, what do you think in terms of?
Well, I'm just trying to see if there's some minor cleanup we can do, at least in terms of referring to tables that don't exist.
Well, we know table 5.5 is not the right reference. It should,
Right.
we could make table 5.4 and be to be created later.
Well, what, the first 5.5 should be 5.4 and referred to within item number 6, because it kind of does it anyway without referring to the table. So that one's not an issue.
And I'm sorry, which page are we on? I was jumping.
178,
Okay.
that first table, 5.5,
On parking
aisle width.
aisle widths, it is literally,
Correlates to 6, which is above
Right.
it, and we just need to reference in 6, like we did in that other section, that the arrangement of parking spaces and utilizing the widths in table 5.4. Other than, so it doesn't say the following being the minimum, it doesn't,
Right.
the following being the minimum doesn't get us to table 5.4.
right, it just had a colon there and
Yeah.
right, so adding reference to table 5.4 is the first instance of keeping the numbering system in this correct. On parking aisle widths.
So that gets us there. And then if we go back to 5.17A, the first line, where it talks about seeing table 5.5 required parking spaces for residential zones, if we just get rid of that line for now, because we don't have a table 5.5 that talks about required parking spaces for residential zones,
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
we get rid of that.
That parenthetical, so now we're on page 175, towards the top, off-street parking and loading requirements.
Well, and I don't even, it says parking requirements for T-zones, and it says, and Dev 2 are located in table 4.2, but it's not just Dev 2, it's Dev, I don't even know that you need that there, because it's already in its own section, so.
So
Do we just label this off-street parking and loading regulations?
And just delete that
And
whole
delete the beginning?
introductory two
Yeah.
sentences.
Fine.
Okay, that gets that cleaned up.
And then next year in the budget, put in for a parking consultant.
There you go.
Like,
And we're all gonna ride bicycles.
I think you'll have to do a global search for table 5.5 because it is referred to. I found it at least 3 times.
Okay.
But actually, it's not that bad. There's just that one reference back on page 128 of the modified
And I think we
section
deleted that.
4.1. Oh, you may have deleted that.
No, I think we stopped at 126. Yeah, we kept 128.
4.1 section H3. Parking calculations.
Can we just get rid of C and then on page 128? This is where we talked about effective parking and actual parking. Unless,
I think those references to table 5.5 just sort of bracket and put table X, point X to be created later or something.
so just put to be created. on that page. Okay.
And then, thank you for jumping around. We have 5 minutes to go.
Alright, so we've done 5.17.
So,
So we're not in just looking real quick, he's got a highlighted thing on 177 that says the number of curb cuts per block shall be minimized. If it's on a state highway, we have no control, that's under the jurisdiction of the state DOT, they have to get a curb cut permit from them. And otherwise, if it's on a town road, they get a curb cut permit from Public Works, so,
So delete that line.
So we're on page 177, section 5.17, subsection 3 on curb cuts.
Yeah.
E, can we delete E
We can
on
just delete it.
minimization of curb cuts?
Yep.
Good.
I'm trying to get you through at least 5.
Yep.
So then we redid the table on 178 to be 5.4. And made that reference. And then
The next note is on page 180. There's a rendering of a gas station.
So he's just saying that that picture doesn't make much sense compared to 2,
Seriously.
3.
I think we can delete that altogether. That had to do with the,
Yeah, for those who, like in the, it looks like a country
It came-
store
it
with
came out
gas
of
it had to do with the form zoning efforts.
To just get rid of figure
Yeah,
5.3.
that,
Is it
Well, it's referred to
Let's
in
see.
It says,
C.
yeah,
It
so
says
just say drive-through windows shall comply with the following standards.
Okay.
And cut both of those figures, which don't seem valuable right now. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And we're getting rid of figure 5.4. Right, because that was what was
Yeah.
referenced in, yeah, okay. And then we just have the Q spaces.
So this is still called 5.5, but that's okay. And it is actually referred to,
Yes, it's
Correct.
actually referred to within the text, that's amazing.
though the note is, he wasn't sure why, first of all, why it was highlighted. It's also highlighted here,
Well, he was just copying it.
so that's okay. Then there's other, which has bracketed MBDB and LC2.
I have no idea what that is.
So I think we can delete those.
And landscape. Hey, we can finish 5, Andrew.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna make it.
I don't think we're gonna get to 6.
I don't think we're, I think we have finished 5.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just scrolling through some 6 to see, you know. Is, I don't- well, there's something on 187.
There's some character references on 190.
No,
To-
I'm on 187, section H, time period and expiration of section 6.3. Approving a special exception, the commission may set time limits on the permit.
I'm gonna check that.
Yeah, whether we can,
Page 187, time limits, special exception.
Comments, it's not sure if we may set a time.
Yeah, we can't tell them it has to commence within 12 months.
You can't tell them 12 months, but you could tell them
You can,
the 3 years.
well,
you
a
could
special
do.
exception, I'll have to check, typically runs with the land,
Okay,
but a site plan approval can have an expiration date. Let's say the economy goes belly up and they don't wanna do it, you can't tell them they
right,
have to do it.
right.
Can a building permit as of right have an expiration date?
Building permits, you have to start within 6 months, and then you have to keep working at it, and it's at the discretion of the building official to renew it, or to allow it to continue.
And that's by statute or by?
That's under the building code.
Okay, so on 187, those look like two things that, Chris, you need to check in on whether these expirations and time limits comport with
Yeah.
law.
Okay.
Do we have a new town council yet?
Yes, we do. Fortune and Moses. Well, it's a different branch from the branch that represents, the high school. So it's the same law firm, but a different portion of it.
Okay, then,
So I can ask, I can reach out to them.
so I think we're just at 1 minute left, page 191, site plan objectives. It is a discuss with the TPZ of whether these provisions could be placed in standards rather than review criteria.
What's the difference?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see any reason to move these from where they are on page 191.
So just get rid of the note.
Yep. And then the last item here is of the list of things that we're reviewing, one had neighborhood character, so we should delete character.
And then delete
And-
character of the.
Yeah, and delete character of the, so just had, will be in general harmony with the surrounding neighborhood. You see that, Chris?
Yeah.
Is it merely the word that's objectionable or the concept? It's the
Character
same.
isn't something you can consider anymore.
Even though deleting the word character
Doesn't change the meaning.
doesn't change the meaning of the sentence whatsoever.
Doesn't say character.
Maybe we should end on that note. So that got us to section 6.4, about page 193. Which means we have, I'm gonna call it about 30 or so pages left, which is not bad.
No?
So
And
hopefully
so
our,
far, I don't have anything for you tonight.
I predict we will finish next time.
I do predict that as well. That's not as bold as Andrew's prediction earlier, but
Well, Andrew hustled us along.
he did. No, and I sincerely appreciate everyone taking the time to do this. The light at the end of this tunnel is near. Much appreciated.
And then you
Motion
get to
to,
start on a town plan.
motion to adjourn.
Some will
Second.
Moving and second, any discussion, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? Really nice to see everyone. Thank you all.